about Ashtanga Yoga. The whole purpose of Ashtanga Yoga is to have that control of the mind and then eventually to get the mind absorbed, to dissolve the mind, right? So the different yogas are for different temperaments. So Karma Yoga is action oriented, Bhakti Yoga is emotional oriented, Jnana Yoga is intellectual oriented, lots of logical thinking, analysis. This Raja Yoga is like control oriented. It aims to, so many things are prescribed. Yama and Niyama, discipline to control our lifestyle. Asana, discipline to perfect our posture. Pranayama, control of breath. So at all that pratyahara, withdrawal of senses. So at all aspects, there is this kind of control until we get to samadhi, of course. So this Grata Kalpana is this is the reason why people practice Ashtanga Yoga, is to have more control of their minds. And this whole chariot analogy is like this. The charioteer is the intellect. The reins are the mind. Okay. And the horses are the sense organs. Now, what happens is, ideally, that intellect is Shastra trained. It is educated by Shastra. It's a sattvic intellect. Because intellect can also be rajasic or tamasic. So the type of intellect that we have depends on the knowledge that we are gaining. So ideally, that intellect is a Shastra learned intellect or a sattvic intellect. That mind ideally complies with that intellect or tries to comply with the intellect. But sometimes the mind doesn't comply with the intellect because of the vasanas. Its habitual tendencies are not to comply. So, although that intellect is learning new knowledge, learning new ways of how to live life, of how to be, the vasanas are so strong that that mind is not willing to comply. And when that mind is not willing to comply, then the horses, which are the sense organs, they run amok. And we never get to our destination. And the five sense organs represent the horses. I know there are four horses, five sense organs, but think they all represent the five sense organs. So the mind, if we slip hold of the mind slips hold of the sense organs and we fall. It's called Dushta Ashva. Dushta Ashva. The horses just go wild. But when that intellect is able to hold the mind, huh, that is called Sat Ashwa. That Ashwa, the horses are very good then. They're very obedient. Then I will get to my destination. And when the mind is under the control of that sattvic intellect, it is available for me to use. I can use it as I wish. I can use it as I want. I can say, okay, mind, from this time to this time, this is what we're doing. From this time to this time, this is what we're doing. I can order it around. We're actually ordering our minds. But when the intellect is not able to order the mind, which is a lot of times, it becomes very difficult to do anything. And there's a delay in our progress as seekers because the intellect mind separation is there. They're not united, they're not yukta. And to make it yukta, that process of yukta means united, that process of japa is very powerful. Huh? So that's why these practices we talked a lot about, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, all of these things are extremely powerful because in that japa practice or in my sadhana, I'm telling my mind, sit here. You sit here for 2 malas, 3 malas, you sit here. And the mind is forced to listen. Then the mind gets that samskara of listening to the intellect. And once that samskara or that impression is built, then my mind starts to become available for me to use. A lot of times why we don't progress in life is because our very mind is not available for us to use. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So that is called samanaska. This is a very, at some point when we take up Kathopanishad, this analogy is extremely powerful if we think about it. But this is the reason. That is why the spiritual practice is, I can't stress how important it is. It makes your mind obedient to your intellect. And that forms the groundwork for any progress in any field of our lives. If that is united, there's nobody can stop us. We can do so many things. But if that is disunited, if not united, we will be very slow on the path. Very, very slow. And there will be a constant battle inside. When there's a constant battle inside, it's very hard for me to do anything in the world because I'm losing in myself. How do I expect to win in the world? But if I'm winning in myself, I can win the world. That is why they say you win the mind, you win the world. So, hence, Ashtanga Yoga greatly aids in these practices. And last week, we specifically saw Dharana, where we hold our mind's attention. We tie our mind to a specific form, a sound, a name. We tie our mind to something. And dhyana is thereby which we flow, the thought flows towards that thing which we tied it to. So we tied it to something, and the thought is flowing to which we tied it to. But the dhyana is still vichidya. It's still broken. Samadhi is when it is unbroken, unbrokenly flowing to that object. What we also call sarala chintanam in that bhakti practice. That is what we should aim for. Before any sort of meditation practice, let me sit down and meditate, forget about it. First, we must build samadhanam or ekagra. That is what we must build. When that is effective, then we can say sit down and meditate. Then we can really meditate. But before we build this ekagra, we're not going anywhere. So hence the importance of these three practices. Okay? So now we are entering into Ashtanga Yoga, right? So as this text is Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Now, very nicely, Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi says something very beautiful about prana. I did not discuss prana in length when we did Ashtanga Yoga because now it will be discussed. So let us see verse number 11. I will chant and then you can repeat. Vayurodhana liyate manaha Jalapakshivad rodhasadhanam. Together. Vayurodhana liyate manaha Jalapakshivad rodhasadhanam. Okay. So, what does this verse mean? Vayu rodhanat. Rodhana means control. It comes from the dhatu rud, means to control. Control of pranas. By the control of pranas, vayu here means air. So pranas. By the control of pranas, what happens? Liyate manaha. Liyate means dissolved. Manaha. The mind becomes dissolved. So by the control of pranas, the mind becomes dissolved. Jala pakshivat. Jala means net. Pakshi means bird. So vat means like. Like net, like a net that's catching birds. Rodha sadhanam. It is a means, sadhanam, of control. So, by the restraint of pranas or breathing, the mind becomes absorbed. This is a means of checking the mind like the net that is used to ensnare birds. So, you see, what happens is, I have just stressed how dharana, dhyana, samadhi are very important in a spiritual seeker's life, right? But what happens is we are not able to get there. We're not able to get there because even to just have the mind silenced is a task. Is a task. Even to just have the mind silenced. So what it says here is like, you think about birds. Think about lots of birds who are flying freely in all directions and everywhere. How do they get caught? Unfortunately, a hunter takes a net and lays it out. And so what happens? And then he makes bird sounds, or he puts food there, and the birds get caught in that net, and they get caught in this net, and then they're silenced. Once the birds are caught in the net, they cannot flutter and fly because they're stuck. They get stuck in those like those quadrants. They get stuck there. They cannot fly. They cannot do anything. They're just still because they're caught in that net. But then what happens is, once you remove that net, again they fly all over the place, isn't it? So what this is saying here is our prana. Our prana here means our breath. Our breath is like a net. It's like a net. It's a net that catches the thoughts. The thoughts are like birds. It is able to catch those thoughts. When we focus on our breath, we are able to catch those thoughts and tame them down. But the catch of this catch is only for a while. Only for a while. It works for some time, and then after that, again, the thoughts flow out. But even that only for a while, at least while we're doing our sadhana, we can catch it. So this is what this verse means. You see, our breath and our mind are very much interrelated. When we are very calm and composed, the breathing is very slow and mellow, deep. When we are angry or mad, the breathing is very fast. When we are rushing, the breathing is very fast. When we are doing something relaxing, the breathing is slow. So our breath exactly matches what's happening in our mind. And similarly, if we want the mind to slow down, then we can use the breath. See, nowadays, we get lost and there's so much of a rush to go here, rush to go there, rush to go everywhere. And so the body is not getting proper oxygen. Circulation is not proper, respiration is not proper. All of these things are not proper. And we fail to pay attention to just breathing. It's the simplest thing. But because it's an involuntary function, we don't pay attention to it. To just breathe and pay attention to it actually relaxes our whole system. It energizes us. It slows us down. And when we slow down, we are the most efficient and creative and beautiful. That performance which we give when our breath and our mind is slowed down is the most wonderful. So the idea here is that take some time to slow down, especially before doing my sadhana. Many times we just jump into our sadhana, sit there and jump into it. The prep work before sadhana is most important, because if the prep is deep and if the mind is still, then the sadhana will go very far. If the mind is not prepped, there is no way that sadhana will not work very well. So in and through my life, I must use this technique, knowing that breath has the capacity to slow down the mind. So some people do this practice of pranayama, control of breath, and there are different exercises, right? So there's kapalabhati, there's anuloma viloma, etc. these practices must be done under someone who's trained and someone who knows them, because otherwise we might mess something up. But the simplest practice that we can do is just do a deep inhale, do a deep exhale, and we can also do what is called prana vikshana. Prana vikshana means just observing the breath. So there is one where we do a deep inhale, do a deep exhale, where we actually expand and contract. And there is one where we just watch the breath. If the mind can get to this subtlety, it can calm down a lot. Because you see, the breath it's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless, it's not quantifiable. So it is getting ready for that subtlety which we are about to dive in. So in this verse, he says, here's what we want to do. If the mind is running amok, if it's going everywhere, then all we need to do is just take that mind and breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. And that mind, those thoughts, everything will start to come down. And why does he say this? Now you see, we will just touch the tip of it today, and then we'll do a little bit more next week. But it's such a brilliant analogy. We have to really appreciate our Shastra, how deep they go. Okay, so we will touch upon verse 12. Okay, I will read now. Chittavayavash chitkriya It's supposed to go high. Chittavayavash chitkriya Shakayodvayi Shakti Mulaka. Chittavayavash Chitkriya Shakayodvayi Shakti Mulaka. What he says here, so he says use the pranas to restrain the mind. Why? What's the connection? Chitta Vayavaha. Chitta means mind. Vayava means the vital airs. Chit Kriya Yutaha. Yutaha means they are endowed with Chit and Kriya Shaktis. So the mind is endowed with what we call Jnana Shakti and Icha Shakti. And the pranas are endowed with what we call Kriya Shakti. So Chit Shakti and Kriya Shakti. Chit is endowed with Chit Shakti. Pranas are endowed with Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti means action, activating force. They are Shakayoho Dwayi. They are like two branches. Shakti Mulaka. And what is the root of those branches? Shakti, or what we call Maya. So the mind and the vital airs are endowed with knowledge and activizing power, respectively. And they are two branches of one power, which we call Bhagavan or Bhagavan's Maya. Now you see here, what is this saying? Now just a simple analogy, and then I will leave you with this thought. Let us say we are not in COVID. Let us say we're in this beautiful farm and there's a wonderful mango tree, right? There's a wonderful mango tree and we want to climb it. Let's say we can actually climb trees and we want to climb this mango tree. Now this mango is at this tall branch, right? And this mango is on top of that branch and we're not able to reach that tall branch. It is very tall branch from the tree. We're not able to reach that far. But out of that same branch, there's a shorter one. There's a shorter one that's coming here. It has no mango. But The taller one has a mango and I cannot reach the taller one. So what should I do? Grab hold of the shorter one, and then by that you will get hold of the taller one and you'll get the mango. Isn't it? Right? I'm not able to get the longer branch, so grab hold of the shorter one. I'll get the longer one and I'll get the mango. Huh? That mango is peace, is shanti. That long branch is the control of the mind. Very difficult, very tall, very hard to reach. That short branch is the control of the pranas. So the times where I'm not able to control that mind, that long branch to get that mango, don't worry. You take that short branch of prana, vikshana, pranayama, whatever. You take that, and by doing that, you will get the long branch and you will get the mango. This is how they're related because they're from the same, it's the same root. It's the same root. So this is how he's saying, this is the connection between the breath and the mind. You slow one down, the other slows down. You slow the other one slows down. So this is a great thing to practice, especially when one is having challenges with their mind, because we know how challenging the mind can be. Okay?